Welcome to My Tech Gear. And with the recent release of the Oculus Quest 2, there's certainly been a lot of hype about it, both positive and negative. Now, the original Oculus Quest came out over a year ago, and because of that, there's certainly a wealth of accessories available for it, like the ones that are on this one. So there's certainly some pros to getting this over the new Oculus Quest 2. The Oculus Quest 2, on the other hand, is the new kid on the block, and because of that, it's light on accessories. However, it's also light on weight too. So there's definitely some pros to buying this instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a tech spec comparison between the two, facing them off against each other, go through the pros and cons of each of them, and by the end of this video, give you my opinion on whether it's worth buying the Quest 1 or the Quest 2, or even upgrading from the Quest 1 to the Quest 2. Let's get on to it. So before we go any further, if you do enjoy the video, please don't forget to like and share it. And if you're not subscribed yet, then hit that subscribe button down below and that notification bell so you will notify about new videos as and when I release them. It really helps me build my channel up so I can continue making videos for you. Thanks! So when the original Oculus Quest came out just over a year ago, it was the first headset to give you tetherless gaming with 6 degrees freedom of movement. So by that I mean you didn't need a cable plugging this into an expensive PC in order to run, and the 6 degrees of freedom gave you forward, back, left, right, up and down, so complete mobility within your environment to run VR games in a standalone headset. And all that was being done at a reasonable $399 US, which really hadn't been seen before. It took VR gaming from a niche market into, whilst not mainstream gaming, it certainly made it a viable gaming platform. And then when the Quest 2 was released, we saw an evolution of the platform. Certainly in some areas this does exceed the Quest 1, but in some areas it's a devolution, or rather a step back, and it's these areas of compromise that makes this a little bit complicated when comparing the two. The sales of these are actually significantly higher than the original Quest 1, 5 times the early indicators, so certainly the interest in this platform certainly isn't waning. So let's dive into the tech specs. So comparing the two headsets side by side, there is definitely a tech difference between the two. If you look at the screen resolution, for instance, on its own, there are 50% more pixels in the Quest 2 than there are in the Quest 1. So the Quest 1 has a resolution of 1440 by 1600 per eye, and the Quest 2 is 1832 by 1900 per eye. So you do get that clarity of picture more in the Quest 2 than you do in the Quest 1. And the resolution of the screen cannot be underestimated. People talk about an SDE, or the screen door effect. So with the original Quest 1, when the screen is so close to your eyes, it looks like you're looking at the screen through a mesh door. The Quest 2, however, has a far higher resolution. If you compare screenshots, or even if you just try the headsets on yourself, side by side, it's not night and day, but there is a significant improvement in the reduction in the screen door effect on the Quest 2 than it is on the Quest 1. This leads to increased immersion into the games and delivers a far more enjoyable experience when you're playing. Both of them also run at different hertz rating. So the hertz rating are the number of times per second that your screen updates. So the higher the number, the smoother your screen will be, which hopefully would also reduce on things like motion sickness and stuff like that. The original Oculus Quest ran at 72 Hz. The Quest 2 runs at 90 Hz. So we've got an 18 Hz or 18 extra times per second that screen is updating. Now, whilst we don't have many games at the moment that are enabled for that, and Oculus hasn't officially triggered it or enabled it at the moment, when they do turn it on, you will actually see a significant enough of a difference between the two headsets. Where I think there is a step back in regards to the screen is in the technology that's being used. So the original Oculus Quest used OLED screens, and it used twin OLEDs, so you had a screen dedicated per eye. The Quest 2, however, replaces that with a single LCD panel. What that means is some of the contrast and the blacks aren't going to be as good in the LCD as they were in the OLED. However, the colours in the LCD screen do seem to be better than the original. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. A lot of people on the internet are complaining about the black levels on the LCD compared to the original OLED panel. I think with time though, game developers are going to get better at optimizing it for an LCD panel. So we'll see how that plays out over time. There is also more memory in the Quest 2. The Quest 1 came with 4 GB of memory. Quest 2 has 50% more memory. It comes with 6 GB. The processor itself sees a significant difference as well. The original Quest 1 came with a Snapdragon 835 processor. That processor came out in early 2017, so if you look at it in this day and age, you're looking at a processor that's 3.5 years old now. In contrast, Snapdragon XR2 that comes in the Quest 2 is brand new this year, optimized for mobile gaming platforms. So this processor is supposed to be 50% faster, better, however you kind of say it, than the 835. I don't think we're seeing that yet in the games that we're being given, but it will get better over time. Certainly some games though are starting to use the extra power, so some games like Saints and Sinners for instance, you will see a difference in what gets rendered and the detail of your rendering surroundings in game. So you might see vines on the side of a house on a Quest 2, but on a Quest 1 it will just be a blank wall. If you look at Red Matter, they kind of did that foveated view, which is where they render more detail in the middle of the screen on the outside. If you see on a Quest 1, it kind of looks like you're looking through a bit of a window. On a Quest 2, they've managed to get rid of that entirely. So again, as time goes on, games are going to get better at making the most of that hardware. Now the connection to your environment shouldn't be underestimated, and the Quest 2 comes with Wi-Fi 6. So that should see a far faster, more stable connection to your router. So if you're doing things like virtual desktop and trying to wirelessly stream your gaming from a PC to your headset, you should see significant improvements in that area as well. And now we come to the controllers, and there's definitely a significant difference between the two headsets in the controllers, other than one being black and one being white. So size-wise, the one on the Quest 2 is notably bigger than the Quest 1, especially around this ring. If you compare the two side by side, you'll notice that they are actually significantly, or at least a significant size bigger over here than there. The actual overall size of these as well is a bit of a difference as well. The original Quest 1 controllers are a lot smaller and better for smaller hands. This is more of a substantial controller and definitely feels bigger. That difference between the pad where the buttons are is quite significant. It's taken me a while to get used to them. I think in the long run though, it should be better. What's really interesting though is the Quest 1 controller was straight. So when you hold it in your hand, it's a straight one. If you look at the controller for the Quest 2, it's angled, which originally when I had it out of the box felt really weird, but there's actually a good reason for this. If I hold this in my hand, and I hold my hand normally, the Quest controller is typically straight. If, however, I then hold this straight, because it's not an angled handle, the actual ring kind of sits at an angle. So in game, it doesn't look like you're holding something straight. So this is more ergonomic and better designed to sort of relate your real environment into the game. So whilst I think it would take a while to get used to this, I think in the long term, it's definitely the better deal. The battery in this is also significantly better as well. They both run off of a single AA, but the battery life, or how long the battery lasts in this, is supposed to be 4 to 5 times longer than it is in this, which is awesome because who wants to keep changing batteries all the time? And finally we get to the area that's probably the most subjective, and that's around fit. The Quest 1, when it came out of the box, had this rubberized head strap, which was okay, but lots of parties over the last year have come up with accessories like head straps and head pads in order to try and make it more comfortable. As you can see, I've got a couple on here, which is what I've used on the Quest 1, and that really helps make it more comfortable for long-term gaming. On the other side of it, we've got the Quest 2. Now, out of the box, this came with like a elasticated head strap, which, as you can tell, I didn't actually find that comfortable. I replaced it with the Elite strap to put onto here, which I think made a big difference. So out of the box, I think the Quest 2 was definitely a step back in that regard. And next we look at the face cover. So out of the box, well, again, I've replaced mine on the Quest 1, so you can tell me how much I like that one. It was really quite rough. I didn't find it set on my face particularly well. It kept moving around a lot. I just didn't find it that comfortable. I will say that I think the Quest 2 has a better out of the box cover, and I think that's because they've partnered with VR Cover to make sure that the face cover that sits is actually a lot more comfortable out of the box. I still don't think it's particularly great. I don't like the idea of a foam face cover because you get hot playing games, right? And then that all soaks into the foam and it's just gross. I don't know why they don't have like a faux leather cover or something like that just out of the box, because let's face it, it's probably the first accessory everyone's going to get anyway. And last we come to weight, and there's certainly a difference between the two. So the original Quest 1 comes in about 570 grams, and I think this is about 503. So there is a difference, although that is with the original head strap on, not with this one on. It just feels lighter, it's smaller, it's lighter. When you put it on your face, it really does make a difference. So your IPD is a big contributor to comfort as well. So your IPD is your interpupillar distance, so it's the distance between your two eyeballs. So on the Oculus Quest, it had a slider here that allowed you to sort of move those lenses further and closer between 58 and 72 millimeters, and you had complete control over that, so it suited a wide range of people. The Quest 2, however, does things differently. It replaces the slider with 3 fixed positions at 58, 63 or 68 millimeters wide. So if your IPD isn't on that number or close enough to it, you can get problems with blurred vision. People have reported about being able to try and set it to a half notch, so like a 1.5 and a 2.5 to try and give you a little bit of a better range, but it's certainly not ideal if you're on the extremes of that distance. I would say the average person is around 63 mils, so for most people this is probably going to be okay, but it is something to consider. So for me, the Quest 2 is a headset of compromises. With that screen, you do get higher resolution, you get a higher hertz rate, and the reduction in that screen door effect cannot be underestimated. However, because it's LCD rather than OLED, you do lose the contrast and the blacks, although you do gain what I think is a better color replication on the LCD. For those blacks, there's no way at the moment you have to control that contrast ourselves, so we are completely reliant on developers to be able to optimize these games for the Quest 2 going forwards. I've certainly seen some games releasing updates now that give those better blacks in the Quest 2, so it'll be interesting to see what happens over time as developers start optimizing it for the Quest 1 and Quest 2. I think they're going to have to start setting different contrast or light levels depending upon the headset it runs on. The controllers I think are better. I think they're more substantial on the Quest 2 and a better size. The longevity of the battery is, I say, significantly longer than they are on the Quest 1 as well. Fit-wise, out of the box, it's a little bit tricky because I think on some regards it is better. I think the foam face cover out of the box is better, although I still don't like them and would prefer, as I said, a faux leather cover. The strap, the head strap, is just not good and should be replaced by something. Again, I've got the Elite strap on mine, but it is significantly lighter. So even with that out-of-box elasticated head strap on my head for short stints, it was actually fine. So if you're passing it around and getting different people to try it, it's actually not a bad lightweight strap to have. But for longer term gaming, there's no way I'd have it on my Quest for any long period of time. So at the end of the day, do I recommend buying the Quest 1, buying the Quest 2, upgrading from the Quest 1 to the Quest 2, keeping the Quest 1, not buying the Quest 2? I think it depends. If you're brand new to VR, not too sure whether this is your kind of thing, then maybe go to like Craigslist or eBay or somewhere and see if someone is selling a Quest 1 for cheap. You can try it out, and if it's not your bag, probably sell it for the same price you bought it for. If it is though, you could then sell it again for the same price and use that to help pay for the Quest 2. If, however, you know that VR is your thing, or you've got a bit of extra cash lying around, then by all means go and buy the Quest 2. I don't think the difference between the Quest 2 and the Quest 1 is much at the moment. However, the extra processing power of the XR chip that's inside it is going to start making a difference over time, which probably ties into whether you should get one if you've already got a Quest 1. I think you should wait. The difference between a Quest 1 and a Quest 2 isn't significant at the moment. Developers are just starting to get their mitts around the difference of that XR chipset and what they can really get out of it. Plus, there's also the extra 2 gig of memory as well. So I think in 6 months' time, you might start seeing significant enough of a difference to warrant the jump, but only time's really going to tell with that. Personally though, I bought the Quest 2 and I'm far more than happy, and I'm glad I upgraded from the Quest 1. For me, that higher resolution, the higher hertz rate, because I get motion sickness on some games, so I'm hoping that fixes that, and the reduction in that screen door effect, so that looking through that mesh door, I cannot stress how much of a difference that made to the gaming and the immersive feel of that in VR. For me, it was definitely worth the jump, and I'm quite happy that I did. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helped you make up your mind as to which Quest you would get, whether you'd upgrade or just stay put. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and share it. If you're still here but not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, see you in the next one.